Des implied that we were friends or contemporaries. We were neither. Just Call Me Des was a deliberate attempt at affability and a way to counteract the power imbalance between us. Just Call Me Des was his first attempt to groom me. This book is a memoir, which means it's about me. As a journalist, I write stories for a living. I write true stories about other people and places. I've been trained to remove myself from my writing and to be an observer through which the reader can experience something. But me, as a subject, I learned early in my career that a good reporter shouldn't insert themselves into the story. In the first week of my first job at a major newspaper, an editor handed me back a story I'd written and asked, "Are you famous?" No, I don't think so," I said. "Then why would anyone care what you think? Take all the I out of it." And with that advice in mind, I apologise for the repeated use of I on the following pages. Prologue. I was a victim of child sexual abuse. It occurred more than 40 years ago. I was 13 years old when it started and 14 when it stopped. This is a story about what happened to me when I was a young teenager. It's about how I kept it to myself for 4 decades. It's about how I learnt to cope with the impact of the abuse and about how sometimes I didn't. But it's also about how, one day, after almost 40 years of keeping something secret for so long, I decided to do something I had often dreamt about but never had the self-confidence to go through with, bringing the perpetrator to justice. When I eventually made the decision to initiate a police investigation into what happened to me, I knew I wanted to get something out of it other than just retribution, some kind of silver lining. I wasn't necessarily thinking about financial compensation, but I decided that if I was going to spend the next couple of years dredging up painful, private memories and making them public, then I wanted something tangible and constructive to show for it, regardless of the legal outcome. I had been searching for a new book project to get my teeth into for a while. At the time of my first contact with the police, it had been nearly 5 years since the publication of my previous book, The A to Z of Modern Manners. But there wasn't a single idea I came up with that could sustain my enthusiasm to the point where I wanted to pitch it to a publisher. I have a day job, and writing a book means giving up a lot of weekends and holidays, so it needs to be more than just a good idea. It needs to be something I'm truly passionate about. However, as I sat in a brightly lit but windowless room at King's Cross Police Station one day in early 2019, giving my official statement to a detective, a difficult and traumatic process that would ultimately take 2 days and necessitate, among other things, that I describe a penis I had seen only briefly and that I draw a floor plan of an apartment I was in for less than an hour, both based on 40-year-old memories, I realised the book idea I was looking for was right in front of me. Turning this experience into a book, I thought, would also be a convenient way for me to disassociate from it a little, by viewing it through a journalistic lens. I could tell myself this was research for a story rather than an official inquiry into my claims. In the early days of the police investigation, when I was unsure about what the outcome of it would be, I toyed with different ways of approaching this book while still maintaining my privacy and upholding the secret I had lived with for decades. My secret had been important to me for so long and in many ways defined me. So I figured if I was going to write about it, I needed to be clever about how I tackled the story so I could retain some of the mystery about myself. I thought I could write it in the way I've been trained to write everything, treating it as journalism, true crime journalism, and pretending it was about someone else. Victims of child sexual abuse automatically have their identities suppressed by the court, and an application by the victim needs to be made before that order can be lifted. So I convinced myself I could tell the story using aliases, as if it happened to other people. Another option was to write about the other victim in my case and make his story the focus. I went through the legal process with a friend who was abused by the same man. However, it didn't take long for me to realise writing the story that way would require him to be far braver than I had the courage to be. Then there was the elephant in the room. I don't have a reputation or any experience in writing about crime. My normal milieu is fashion, design, architecture, luxury goods, and the people and businesses that produce them. I write about exotic locations and 5-star hotels. My journalistic stomping ground is more likely to be the shores of Lake Como than Long Bay Correctional Centre, Sydney's major metropolitan prison complex.